Welcome, everyone, to the Oracle Apex Office Hours. Today is June 27th, 2024. Today, we're going to talk about what's new in Apex 24.1, and this is part 2 of a 4-part series. But first, we have some announcements and some updates. So upcoming in-person conferences next month in July in Nashville is the Apex conference at ODTUG Kscope 24. This is going to be a very exciting conference for us. It'll be our second annual boot camp, and also all the other content that has been known at Kscope to be exciting all through the past years and previous conferences. We have our Oracle Apex Symposium for database. We have our open mic night. We have all the general sessions that are available. There's over 65 sessions with Apex content, as well as the boot camp. So it's going to be a very exciting time in Nashville, and we hope to see you there if you can join. So some other upcoming conferences, we have the Oracle Code Summit in Malagna, Spain in July, followed by the Latin America Oracle User Community Tour in South America across 10 different countries in August. And then once again, we have Oracle Cloud World 2024 in Las Vegas in the second week of September. It's going to be a really exciting time across a lot of these events. We hope to see you there. For more events, please go to apex.oracle.com/go/events. You can even submit any events that you're aware of that are Apex-centric and have them approved to be placed on the event calendar. We have a variety of new Oracle Apex blog posts for Apex 24.1. So we obviously have the whole Apex brings Gen AI to developers and a variety of other blog posts as well at blogs.oracle.com/apex. You can also go to our main website, apex.oracle.com, and under community on the upper right, there's a link to blogs. We have an improved learning path for empowering low-code apps with AI. You can learn the latest advancements of AI in Oracle Apex, as well as work through hands-on labs to practice along with the training videos. You can earn an Apex AI Champion badge on completion. So you should enroll today for free at Oracle University, which is available at this particular link as well, apex.oracle.com/go/AI-learn. Further, in an hour after this particular session concludes, Monica will be hosting the Oracle Apex Office Hours in Espanol. So the new features of Apex 24.1 will be covered, and that link is apex.oracle.com/go/apex-spanish. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to grab all those links. Moving on to today, this is part 2 of a 4-part series. Last week we did a general overview for Gen AI in Apex, and today we're covering vector search in Database 23 AI, and also covering the new select one-to-many items, working copy improvements, and more in between. So today's speakers, 3 of them actually, so speakers, we have Toufiq Mohammed, Alexis Galdamez, and Paige Hanssen in that order that are going to present their particular content. So over to Toufiq to talk about vector search in 23 AI.
Hi everyone, welcome to this Office Hours webinar. What's new in Oracle Apex 24.1, Part 2. In Part 1, we have covered the generative AI support introduced in Oracle Apex 24.1. In this session, we'll be covering few of the other features introduced in 24.1. My name is Toufiq. I'm Senior Product Manager in the Oracle Apex Product Development team. The first topic I'll be covering today is AI vector search. To be fair, this isn't a feature introduced in 24.1 per se. You can do almost all of it in the older versions as well, as long as you have Oracle Database 23 AI. In the demo, I'll show you how you can easily get your hands onto Oracle Database 23 AI and Oracle Apex 24.1 easily. All right, let's dive in. So quickly, let's look at the agenda for today. We'll start by looking into what exactly are vectors and what is vector distance. And then we'll look into the vector data types, PL SQL APIs, and SQL functions that are available in Oracle Database 23 AI. And then once we have covered all these technical conceptual stuff, we'll jump into demos where I'll show you. So what is Oracle AI Vector Search? As part of AI Vector Search, vector data types and vector operations are now natively implemented in the Oracle database. This means you can store vector data natively inside the database and perform vector operations like converting text into a vector or calculating the vector distance between 2 vectors directly within the database. AI vector search enables searches on business data to be combined with semantic searches. Alongside keyword search and fuzzy search, you can now also perform semantic searches on your business data. AI vector search also allows interactions with large language models, LLMs, to be augmented with business data. The results obtained from semantic search can be used to enhance the prompts that are sent to LLMs, resulting in more accurate and business context aware LLM responses. So, before we start using AI vector search, let's take a step back and understand the basics. What is vector? A vector is a sequence of numbers called dimensions used to capture the important features of the data. Vectors represent the semantic content of the data, not the actual words in the document or pixels in an image, right? Instead, they capture the underlying meaning or patterns within the data. For example, in the text data, a vector might represent themes or topics discussed in a document, right? In image data, for example, a vector could represent the shapes, colors, and textures present in the image. So now that we understand what a vector is, let's move on to understanding vector distance. A vector on its own may not be very useful, right? However, given two vectors representing two pieces of data, we can understand the relationship between them, compare them, and analyze them by performing mathematical operations on top of these vectors. The main operation on vectors is calculating the mathematical distance between them. Vector distance is a measure uh, of how similar or different two vectors are. In other words, it helps us understand how closely related the underlying data points are, right? So there are different ways how you can calculate the vector distance, but one of the most common methods is Euclidean distance, the formula that you see on the screen. If you remember from your high school, this is like measuring the straight line distance between 2 points in space, right? So there are many other distance formulae also available, right? All right. Now that we understand what are vectors, let us see what are vector data types and what are PL/SQL APIs and SQL functions that are available in Oracle Database 23 AI, which helps us deal with these vectors, right? First, you can start by creating tables with vector data type columns. Here are two ways you can create such tables. You can either create a vector column with no hard constraints on dimension formats. If you don't specify any of them, you can enter vectors of different dimensions with different formats. Or you can also create a vector column with specific dimension and format defined. So the next interesting thing you can do in Oracle Database 23 AI is importing Onyx embedding model into the database, right? So what exactly is Onyx? Onyx stands for Open Neural Network Exchange, right? Onyx is an open standard format for machine learning models. Although you can generate vector embeddings outside the database using pre-trained open source embedding models or your own embedding models for that matter, you also have the option to import these embedding models directly into the Oracle database, right? Oracle database implements an Onyx runtime directly within the database. This allows you to generate vector embeddings directly using normal SQL. For example, you can see once you have the Onyx model, you can load this Onyx model into the database using dbms data mining dot import Onyx model PL/SQL package. Once you have the Onyx models loaded into the database, now you can put them to use to convert your data into vectors. So how do you convert that? You can leverage the vector underscore embedding SQL function to create vector embeddings of your data. In the example that you see on the screen, I'm creating a vector embedding of overview paragraph using the doc model, Onyx model located inside the database. Perfect. So the next, once we have the vectors stored in the database, the next step is we can now compare these vectors and perform semantic search by calculating the vector distance between them using the vector underscore distance SQL function, right? So this is all PL/SQL APIs and vector data types. This is all available in Oracle Database 23 AI, which you can easily leverage. So that's all the PPTs. Let's go to demo. Let me stop sharing my PPT. I hope you can see my browser. So this is the app builder. So as I promised, I will show you how you can easily get your hands onto an Oracle Database 23 AI. So So Oracle Database 23 AI is available on OCI as an always free option. So once you provision for yourself an autonomous database, you get an option to select 23 AI as the version, database version. So it is available in four regions: Ashburn, London, Frankfurt, and Phoenix. So if you have an account in these regions, you can right away provision an 23 AI database and start building. So once you create an autonomous database, you can also click on SQL so that you get access to the admin user, wherein you can run the SQL queries and you can enable vector search for your Apex schema. So I'll show you the steps which you need to take to enable vectors. So before that, let me show you the demo directly. Here I have a social media app. In this social media app, users can upload image by clicking on the plus icon at the bottom here. So once an image is uploaded, what I'm doing is I'm creating a description of this images uploaded using AI. So basically, I'm sending across this particular image to GPT models, and I'm asking what's in the image so that the AI can generate a description for me. This is the description that the AI has generated. This part is not covered in this demo. This you can do it some other time. But then once we have these descriptions created, these descriptions are stored in the database. Now I can search these descriptions. For example, if I search for sneakers, I get sneakers, all the images which have sneakers in them because this word sneakers available here in the description. What if I type Mumbai? I again get all the images from Mumbai because the word Mumbai is available in the description. This is nothing interesting, right? I'm performing a simple keyword search. But what if instead of Mumbai, I enter Bombay? Bombay is also same as Mumbai, right? But then I don't get any results. That's because the actual word Mumbai is not available in the descriptions, right? I have Mumbai in the description, but not Bombay. Now, how do I search to my images? That's where AI vector search comes into picture. As soon as I enable AI vector search, right now you can see even though the word Bombay is not available in these descriptions, it is able to understand that Mumbai and Bombay are the same city, and it is showing all the images from Mumbai at the top. And similarly, if I type pair of sneakers instead of sneakers, it shows the images with sneakers in them, even though you can see the exact phrase is not there in the description, it's not available in the description. Similarly, if I type boots, you can see the word boots is not available in the description, but then it understands that boots and sneakers are almost semantically same, and it is also calculating the vector distance that you see here. So based on the vector distance, the results are sorted, right? So how did I build this magic in Oracle Apex? How did I build a semantic search? So let's begin with the development steps. For that, I shift to my app builder. This is the Apex app builder. I'll show you the steps. I have the steps saved as SQL scripts. I'll open that and I'll show you quickly. Let me increase the screen size a little bit. All right. So first, what I do, I start by creating a directory. Why directory? Because I need a directory to store my Onyx model file so that I can load it from the directory directly. So I have a directory created. So I am running these commands as an admin user or sysdba. As I was telling, you can access the admin user using those database actions. So once you have admin access, you can create a directory. This is one of the easiest ways I figured out. It may be different for you, but then this is what I found it to be easy. Then once I have the directory created, I create a credential so that I can access my object storage because I have the Onyx file, the Onyx embedding file loaded into the object storage. How do you create this Onyx formatted file? That's something you can read the documentation from AI Vector Search. I'm not going to cover that. But once you have the Onyx format file, you can load that into an object storage bucket. And then I create a token, auth token for myself. And then I create a credential in the database. Again, this also I'm running as an admin user. Once I have the auth token created, I load the file into the directory, this particular directory, Manish directory, which I created earlier. And here I'm passing the credential name. So using this PL SQL call, I'm actually transferring the file from object storage bucket to the database directory, right? Now I have the file in my database directory. Then I grant a few privileges to my parsing schema. The first thing is I grant read write access to that directory so that I can load the model later. And then I also grant create mining model. This is needed if you want to use AI vector search inside that particular schema, right? If you want to create mining models. So once I have these both grants uh, granted to this parsing schema, I can shift to SQL commands in Apex, meaning I'm running these commands from here on using parsing schema user, right? So then I use dbms vector.load onyx model, which I have shown you earlier. Using this, I'm loading my file, which is located in this particular directory, and I'm actually storing this file as a Onyx model inside the database. I'm registering this file as an Onyx model inside the database. And while registering, we also have to give a name so that we can refer this to this model using this name later point of time when we use it. So once the Onyx model is loaded, the next step is we need to convert. We have these descriptions, right? We have all these descriptions in the database. So what we can do, we can convert these descriptions into vectors. Again, all these conversion is happening without leaving the database. That's where Oracle Database 23 AI is way different from other databases, right? You don't have to, connect to third-party embedding models. You don't have to send your data across to third-party embedding models to convert them into vectors. So here I have the doc model loaded in the database. So what I do, I use this doc model and I use the vector embedding function to convert the AI image description column into vectors. And I'm storing this vector into my database column again, the same table. So once I convert the data into uh, vectors, I have this stored. We can see that in the object browser. So if I go to object browser, here in the SM post table, you can see if I scroll to the right, here I have the image description column as well as the vector column, right? So now I have vectors stored in my database. I have all my image descriptions converted to vectors. I can put them to use. So what I'm doing, I'll go to this particular page, page number 1 of this application. In this page, let's give it some time to load. I have my timeline uh, region, which is the cards region, which you see here, the timeline region. And here I have the SQL query, which is driving the results of this card region. This is where I'm getting the images. So what I'm doing here, as soon as the user types in a search query, search term, I'm first converting that particular search term into a vector, right? So again, I use the same vector embedding SQL function to convert the search term into a vector. Now this is called query vector, right? Once I have the query vector, what I do, I calculate the vector distance between the query vector and all the other vectors that are there in my database table. Once I have the vector distance calculated, what I do, I simply sort order by the result set using this particular vector distance. As simple as that. Using basic SQL, I'm able to actually build something as complex as semantic search, right? Without any need for any data science knowledge, any machine learning knowledge, I'm able to build these kind of semantic search capabilities into my Apex applications. So that is one use case where you can use AI vector search to build semantic search in your Oracle Apex apps, right? Now, the second use case which I'm going to talk about is RAG, how you can build retrieval augmented generation in Oracle Apex applications, right? Before I show you how I built RAG, let us first understand why RAG is important. Why exactly should people look at RAG? So this, I have a high schools application where I have all the high schools listed, and let's say I'm a parent. I want to inquire about these schools, so I click on ask questions. For example, let me take a school which I'm aware of. Let me take this school. That's fine. So here I can ask questions. So if I ask, is Spanish taught here? It comes back with an answer. Yes, Spanish is taught here. So it is answering this particular question based on the data in my database. It's not reading this particular information from the internet. How is it doing? I have already covered this particular part in one of the office hour sessions. So I'm using this context document. I'm sending this context document over to a large language model, in this case, OCI generative AI service, right? So I'm sending this context document over to OCI generative AI service, and it is based on this particular context document, it is able to answer this particular question. But the problem here is sometimes your business data may be few thousand pages long. you may not be it may not be feasible to send the entire context document to the large language model, right? So, and the second problem here is sometimes the REST API endpoint, they have a limitation on number of tokens you can send as part of your system prompt. That is also one of the limitations of the LLM REST APIs that are available. So it's not completely feasible to send the entire context document over to large language model. The third problem here is the fact that these large language models are all paid services, right? You are charged based on the number of input tokens that you supply. So if you're sending a huge document along with your prompt, you're actually charged more. So it is even economical if you can really send only the information that is actually needed. So it will be really optimal if you can only find out the relevant information from this context document based on the user question. For example, to answer this particular question, all I need is this particular sentence. I don't need the entire paragraph, right? So based on the user question, if I can find out what is the relevant chunk in this entire context document and send only that particular chunk to the large language model, then that will solve my problem, right? That is where AI vector search comes into picture. AI vector search helps us do that. Again, I'll show you the same demo with AI vector search. So I have this particular app, the same application, and I click on this particular school. I want to learn more about this school. I ask the same question: is Spanish taught here? Topic words. It is coming back with an answer. But this time, instead of sending the entire context document, I'm only sending this particular text. Now, how did I find this particular text from the entire context document based on this? I'll give you one more. Let's say, what sports are played for girls, something like that. If I ask this question, it comes back with an answer. Again, if you look at the context that is being sent, this is the context. So based on the user question, I'm able to retrieve the information from my database and send that to large language model so that it can answer this question in a human-like fashion. So how am I doing this? Let's take a look at that as well. As you know, I already have the Onyx model loaded into my database. Let me go to that particular application. This is the application that I have here. Let me go to Learn More page. In the Learn More page, this is where I'm performing a RAG. So if I go to the processing tab, you can see I have three processes: retrieval, augmentation, and generation, the RAG model, as I was talking, right? So the first part is retrieval. What does retrieval mean? Finding best suited chunks. So based on the user question, I need to find the best suited chunk from my context document. So how do I do that? I first convert the input prompt into vector, just like how I did previously. Again, you can see here, I'm not using the from statement, just select into. This is again a feature of Oracle Database 23 AI. You don't need to type from. So once I have the query vector stored, what I do, I loop through the chunks. So I have all these context document broken down into chunks. This is one record in my table. This is one record in my table. I have a table created called high school info, which has the chunks of this context document. So what I'm doing, once I have the query vector, I'm calculating the vector distance based on the query vector and the chunk vector. So what I'm doing here is I'm converting this entire chunk into a vector, which is stored in the database. And this chunk vector, let me show that to you quickly, just to avoid any confusion. I go to the high school info table. So I have the chunk C, which is the actual chunk, and the chunk V, which is the vector column. If I look at the data, so this is the chunk, and this is the corresponding vector. So I'm querying this table here in my loop, and I'm calculating the vector distance between the query vector and the chunk vector that is there in my database. And from this query, I'm fetching the first row. Why? Because I know most of my questions based on my business use case, most of my questions can be answered using one chunk. So that's why I'm only fetching the first chunk. If your use case mandates that you want to send more chunks, you can do that just by simply modifying this particular number here. So once I get the chunk, I'm appending that chunk. I'm storing that chunk into page item called prompt context. So this is how I'm retrieving the most relevant chunk based on the user question, and I'm storing it into a page item. So the retrieval part is done. The next step in the RAG is augmentation. Now, what I do, I augment this context. I augment my prompt with this context. So what I do here, I append to my prompt, I append this prompt context. And along with that, I also augment this prompt by providing specific instructions. For example, if the question cannot be answered based on the context that is provided, just written information not found, just to make sure that the large language model is not hallucinating, right? So this is how I can augment my prompt. This is how I'm preparing my final prompt, by augmenting the prompt with my prompt context as well as additional instructions. Once I have the prompt created, the next part in the RAG is generation. This is where I reach out to large language model to generate the response. And here I'm making a post call, but then here you can also use Apex underscore AI PL package to make this REST call, to make this large language model call, and then show the response in the screen like this. So this is how I was able to implement RAG, retrieval augmented generation, in Oracle Apex using AI vector search, right? So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'll be happy to answer. That concludes my demo. That's my time. And the next in line is Alexis. He'll be covering his part, new select one and select many item types, which is introduced in 24.1. Over to you, Alexis.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining. On this section, I'm going to speak about the two new items that have been added to Oracle Apex, the select one and the select many. The select one and select many items, they are list of value based items. It allows the users to be presented with a list of suggestions for their search, where they can pick any of the options. A difference with the combo box or with an autocomplete is that the users can only select what's on the dataset. They can't make up their own options, like on the case, like on the combo box or the text field with autocomplete. The select one and select many has many characteristics and capabilities that are shared between both of the items. So we are going to take a look first to the shared characteristics that they have. When a user comes to one of these items, they are presented with a list of options. We can control the number of options that are being presented to the user. For that, on Page Designer, we have an attribute called maximum values on lists. At the moment, I have it on 100, but this could increase until 999. And you can use it to control how many options are being presented to the user. The user can scroll down, or also could use the keyboard to navigate between the options. Another of the capabilities that these new items have is to control where the dataset is being fetched from. On it will be more precisely on which moment this is being fetched. We have this attribute called fetch on search, that when set to true, the search the results will be fetched directly from the server on every request. So now I have a list of countries and I start typing NA. That sends an asynchronous request to the server. It waits for the results and then it displays the results to the customer. And also, we have the option of setting it to false. On the case that this is set to false, what is going to happen is that all the data is going to be loaded on the client. And afterwards, after the first rendering, it won't go to the server for any search. So the search will be done on the client. That's good when the dataset is not too big and you want to avoid having to do trips to the database to return any result set. But it's also nice to set it to two when it is a complex query that returns many results and the dataset is too big and you don't want to be sending that to the customer on every press rendering. When setting it to two, we also have an attribute that use called catch. What that's going to do is that when there is a search term, and sends that request to the server, is going to store the results for that search. So now if I type two letters, well, there's nothing with that letter, it's going to save the result set for that search term. So next time it will use that someone is looking for those for that search term, it will use the catch instead of going to the server. So with that way, we save some resources. Another of the attributes that we provide to improve the performance on the case that the query is expensive is the minimum characters that needs to be typed to execute the search. Right now, I have that on 0. 0 is the default. So normally you just you come to the item and you just start typing and you get the result straight away. But if the result set's too big or the query too expensive and you don't want to the user to be triggering unnecessary requests, you are able to set it like I want the user to type 3 characters before the search is executed. So on that case, I come to the item and set it to 3. And now I need to type 3 characters. At the moment, no search has been done. And now when I type and the space will be the 3rd character, I can start to see the results with my search. We are also able to control the search style, the match type of how the search is applied. We have 2 options, which is contains, that search if the search term is contained in any part of the string. And also we are able to select the start with, which is self-explanatory. We check if the string is start with the search term. We are also have the possibility to use case sensitive true or false to control if we care about the how the search term case for that. When we define a list of value for this item, it is also possible to define multiple columns and also configure the metadata of those columns to indicate if those columns, if the search should be done on those columns too. Right now, we have on this demo a dataset for countries. So if I want the user to be able to search for a country, not only on the name of the country, I also want the user to be able to search through the capital, to the nationality, but I don't want them to search through the population. I can go to the list of value for that item and check the columns. On this case, the name, which is the like, display value for that, I want the search able to be yes. I set it the capital to the nationality and the population as we mentioned before. We don't want it. So now the user is able to type on our item and said, I'm going to type Bogota, which is the capital of Colombia. And now they're able to find Colombia by just typing the capital. And now when selected, the value of the item will be the display value for that record. We also support icons. Let me just reload to remove the minimum search characters for it. We also support icons that could be defined on the list of values. We can define a column to be an icon. On this case, I'm using a list of values that isn't using an icon, which is this one is the one that using an icon. Mm, Here, you're able to define well your query or the table that is based on your list of values and set an icon. You are also possible to define a group. On this case, the countries are grouped by continent. So you can check if I type something like this, I get these 2 countries are in Africa, these 5 countries are in America. So you are able to provide groups and they will be displayed on your list of options as grouped data. Another attribute that we added is the possibility of show a custom message when there is no records that match the search. On my list of countries, I can type something that it wouldn't match the search, like for example this, and I get a message that I define on the page designer, and it says no countries found. So we go on page designer and we can see under the message groups this new attribute called no data found message, and here you can type whatever message you would like to convey to the users when no record has been found. So another of the capabilities shared between the select one and the select many is the possibility of using template directives. Let's check how they look. Here I have a very simplistic template directive that has an image, a square image of the world. Also, I have the country name as at the title and the capital, the subtitle. This is controlled by an attribute that is called HTML expressions, just value HTML expression. And on that one, you are able to define your HTML. You can use your template directives. You can use substitution strings. These substitution strings are the columns, the additional display columns that can be defined on a list of value. For example, here we see the name, and this is reference using the substitution string ampersand and the dot syntax. So we could see here the name. I use the capital, and also the data had some image URL. So I use the image URL. This is the other list of values here. I use the image URL inside my image tag. So on that one, I'm able to display my image. Then you have all the liberty of using CSS or use or any of the template directed possibilities. For example, if an item is not available in stock, you could use a condition on the template directive and show that the item maybe with a different color and saying, oh, that item is not in stock, to provide a richer UI interface to your developers. So now let's take a look to some of the features that are individual to each of one. On the select menu, of course, the main difference between the select one and the select menu is on the name. Is on the menu you are able to select more than one value. You can use your mouse or your keyboard to select as many options as you want. You are also able to interact with the selected options through like the chips that we call it. You're able to use the keyboard to delete them with the backspace, or you can press the X icon straight away and delete them. You can use the left and right keyboard to navigate between them, or you straight can keep the backspace and just clear the item. We also give the options to developers to control how the selected values are displayed to the user when the focus is not on the item. Right now I have these items. So now if I go, just give me a sec because I think I need to set the defaults of that to use this new attribute that's called display values as. And I set that to comma separated. And now, the focus is not on the item, the values will be displayed here as a comma separated list. This is good when you wouldn't like the height of the item to change. Doesn't matter how many value has been selected, but if you would like the other user interface, you would like the other configuration, which is always displayed then as chips. That's still possible. We just go to the item, which is in the share LOB region. And on the use defaults, you disable that, and then you could see this attribute is called display values as. You are presented with two values. We already talked about the comma separated list, and on this case, I selected the chips. When that happens, independently of the focus being on or off the item, it will always display them as chips. One of the main difference with this is that when the amount of selected values it is big enough, if there's a more than the width of the item, the height will be modified. It will start growing. So all the selected values will be always displayed, which is nice, but the height will be also a stretch or when adding every item. So that's something to take in consideration depending which is your preference. On the select one, let's take a look to the select one and some small difference that it has besides the cardinality of the value between being one and many. When having a select one, any search will always pre-select the first item on the drop down. For example, now I type EL. We have the Saint Helena record being pre-selected. So now if the user press the tab button, that will be the value that will be selected. That is to avoid the user having to use the mouse or use the down and select a value. So if they are quick enough with the selection, for example, Colombia, I already type it until this point. I already know that that's what I'm looking for. I just press tab and pass to the next tabbable. I put the focus on the next item and continue my work. If a user types something that it is not on the selected list, the item will always return to the last valid status. Like in this case, the last valid status was Colombia. So now if I click outside, it returns to that. If the last valid status was being empty and the user types something, because as I mentioned, this is not like a combo box, the user cannot type anything that is not on the dataset, that will be just ignored straight away. And also, it is possible to clear the value of the item by just clicking the X button. So now it will be just one operation. You don't need to go to the item and then press the backspace or something. You just can click the X button. Just the last one on the select menu, we have the possibility, as many of our new multi-value items, to control how the multi-value session state value it is handled. We have this group on the page designer that's called multi-values, and you can change the type between being a delimited list, where you can change the separator, or using a JSON array. When using a JSON array, it will be a plain array of values. This is good if you are using JSON on your tables or you want to use JSON to process on PL/SQL. And also it's nice because when using JSON, you don't have the liability of having a separator that sometimes it could collide or have a conflict with the data of your dataset. And with that, I finish the presentation of the new two items. I will pass the microphone to Paige.
Thanks, Alexis, and really nice presentation. Hi, everyone. My name is Paige Hanssen, and I will be covering working copy enhancements in 24.1 today. Just a really quick overview before we get into a demo. So in 23.2, we first introduced application working copies, and now in 24.1, we've built on top of that and have introduced a number of enhancements to improve the developer experience when using working copies in Apex. So a quick summary of what's changed. You can find all these details on the What's New in 24.1 page on apex.oracle.com. So first, it's now possible to track and compare changes between working copies for a single page. And we've also added an alert to notify developers when they're working in the main version of an application. Lastly, we've added a couple enhancements to the working copy menu to allow developers to compare a page with main at any time and easily navigate between working copies while staying in Page Designer. We're going to take a quick look at all these new features in the demo today. But again, if you would like to read more about the improvements to working copies, you can visit the What's New page. This also includes all the other new features in Apex 24.1 if you haven't checked it out already and you'd like to read up about them. So in my workspace, I have my movies watchlist application, and myself and another developer, which is named Low-Coder, we're using our working copies to implement some new features and make enhancements to this movies watchlist application. I'm going to go ahead and click on my movies watchlist application, and right away, I'm in the main version of this application, and it's being made crystal clear to me that I'm in the main version. We've added, in 24.1, we've added this new alert banner on the main application to make it perfectly clear to developers that they're in the main version. This appears on all the primary high-level pages of an application. So it appears on application home, in shared components and utilities, and especially in Page Designer. So this allows me to avoid making unintentional changes to the main version of my application. And I really want to stick to developing in my working copies and not modify main if I can avoid it. So for my feature, I'm working on some UI enhancements for the Movies Watchlist app. So I'm going to switch to my working copy that I have made so I can do all my development there. In switching, we can see a new enhancement in 24.1 where it is now possible for me to switch directly from one version of the application to another working copy or back to main while staying in Page Designer on the same page. This is extremely helpful because it makes the process of switching between copies so much simpler and faster, which obviously as a developer, I love that. So right away, I can see that I'm in my working copy now, and there's this new icon in the Page Designer toolbar. This is highlighting that there are changes that exist in other working copies. So it might be changes that I have made, changes that another developer has made. So I can click on this icon to open the Page Changes and Locks dialog. And this shows all of the places that this individual page has either been modified or locked in other copies. So this could be in main, it could be in another working copy. Like I said, it could be changes I made or changes that another developer has made. So right away, I can see that Low-Coder has modified this page in one working copy and also has locked this page in another working copy. I can see a bunch of details about when it was updated, who updated it, which working copy specifically, the lock, and even the lock comment is listed underneath the working copy name. And I can view the difference between these two, between this, a specific working copy and mine. And I do want to note that this report is specific to the individual page that is open in Page Designer, right? So this is not a central location for tracking all changes to all pages across all working copies. This is specifically changes and locks for the page that I have open in Page Designer. So that's very important. So to see exactly what has changed in one of the working copies compared to my current page, I can choose the View Diff icon from the Diff column to open the Viewing Page Differences dialog. This allows me to compare changes from a target working copy. So this is the Getting Started region working copy that Low-Coder has been working on versus my current working copy that I have open in Page Designer. So I'm making UI enhancements. That's what's open. And I'm comparing that and looking to see what changes have been made by Low-Coder in their working copy. I can see, again, who changed it, when it was last updated, what page I'm on, and which application it is. And using the code editor and the up and down arrows, I can jump between those changes to easily read and see what changes have been made and how they compare to my current copy. So I can see that Low-Coder has added this new region, this new Getting Started region, and they've also added a server-side condition to the watchlist region. And notice that it's all in a human-readable version. So I can quickly take a look at this. I don't really have to spend time deciphering what exactly has changed. It's made crystal clear to me exactly what's changed, what some of the settings are for these regions, and that makes it really easy to understand what's going on. So now I know that Low-Coder has added these couple things. This doesn't interfere with my UI changes. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of that. And I'm going to go ahead and make my changes. I'm just going to add a little snippet of CSS to the page. And I'll go ahead and save my changes. And this gets us into the next enhancement made for working copies. Rather than doing a full application export to compare the whole application against main, I can now compare this individual page against what it looks like in the main version of the application. So from this working copy menu, we now have this new compare current page with main option. We've renamed compare working copy with main. So now you can still compare your entire application. But if I just want to take a quick look at how my current page compares with main, I can choose compare current page with main. And this opens that same viewing page differences dialog in which I have my main version of the application on the left, because that's my base version that I want to compare against. And I have my current version that I'm working in, my UI enhancements version, where I can see that little snippet of CSS that I've added to compare, and I can compare the difference between my current version and what's happening in main. So I see that's my only change. Nothing crazy, right? But one other thing that's important to mention is that if I do not save my changes, so if I had added the snippet and did not save my page and tried to compare my current version with main, this will not show up. It will be the last saved version of your current page in your working copy. And so with that wraps up the overview of the new changes for application working copies. I hope people find this useful. I think that this will really improve the development experience when using working copies in Apex. And we have about 5 minutes for questions or just to wrap up this office hours. So Jason, I'll turn it back over to you. And that's all.
Thank you so much, Paige. Thank you so much to all of our presenters today with all their great content, and especially to our on the call managing the Q&A. We got to almost all the questions. If you have any further questions, please visit our forum, apex.oracle.com/forum, and open up a new thread. We'll start discussing your questions in great detail there and be able to carry on. If you want to see a replay of any of these other office hours, you can go to apex.oracle.com/office hours. We do record every single office hours. Last session number 1 or part 1 of the 4-part series should be available soon this week. We do thank everyone for attending. We always enjoy having you live. We always enjoy presenting this kind of content, and we look forward to seeing you again on part 3 and part 4 of the Apex 24.1 new features set of engagements. So we're going to have other ones throughout the year. Hopefully we can see you at some of these conferences in person. I'm very excited about a few that I know I'm going to be at. Other members of the team are going to be joining us at obviously Nashville and in Oracle Cloud World. But again, in about an hour's time, join Monica for the Apex office hours in Espanol to cover the Apex 24.1 new features in Spanish. So other than that, everyone, I hope you have a great day, and thank you once again for joining, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.